How to print the value of a tensor object in TensorFlow. I have been using the introductory example of matrix multiplication in TensorFlow. When I print the product, it is displaying it as a tensor object. But how do I know the value of product? The following doesn't help. I know that graphs run on sessions, but isn't there any way I can check the output of a tensor object without running the graph in a session?
The easiest way to evaluate the actual value of a tensor object is to pass it to the session.run method, or call tensor.eval, when you have a default session, i.e. in A with tf.session, column block, or see below. In general, you cannot print the value of a tensor without running some code in a session. If you are experimenting with the programming model and want an easy way to evaluate tensors, the tf.interactive session lets you open a session at the start of your program, and then use that session for all tensor.eval and operation.run calls. This can be easier in an interactive setting, such as the shell or an Python notebook, when it's tedious to pass around a session object everywhere. For example, the following works in a Jupyter notebook. This might seem silly for such a small expression, but one of the key ideas in TensorFlow 1.x is deferred execution. It's very cheap to build a large and complex expression, and when you want to evaluate it, the backend, to which you connect with a session, is able to schedule its execution more efficiently, e.g. executing independent parts in parallel and using boos. To print the value of a tensor without returning it to your Python program, you can use the tf.print operator, as Andre suggests in another answer. According to the official documentation, to make sure the operator runs, users need to pass the produced op to tf.compat.v1.sessionsRun method, or to use the op as a control dependency for executed ops by specifying with tf.compat.v1.control_dependencies, print_op, which is printed to standard output. Also note that in Jupyter Notebooks and Collabs, tf.print prints to the notebook cell outputs. It will not write to the notebook kernel's console logs. You might be able to use the tf.get_static_value function to get the constant value of the given tensor if its value is efficiently calculable.
No, you cannot see the content of the tensor without running the graph, doing session.run. The only things you can see are the dimensionality of the tensor, but I assume it is not hard to calculate it for the list of the operations that TF has. Type of the operation that will be used to generate the tensor, transpose_1 column 0, random_uniform column 0. Type of elements in the tensor, float 32. I have not found this in documentation, but I believe that the values of the variables, and some of the constants are not calculated at the time of assignment. Take a look at this example. The first example, where I just initiate a constant tensor of random numbers run approximately the same time irrespectively of dim 0 column 0 0 column 0 0.003261. In the second case, where the constant is actually gets evaluated and the values are assigned, the time clearly depends on dim 0 column 0 0 column 01.244642. And you can make it more clear by calculating something, d equals tf.matrix_determinant, m1, keeping in mind that the time will run in O, dim 2.8. P.S. I found where it is explained in documentation. A tensor object is a symbolic handle to the result of an operation, but does not actually hold the values of the operation's output. While other answers are correct that you cannot print the value until you evaluate the graph, they do not talk about one easy way of actually printing a value inside the graph, once you evaluate it. The easiest way to see a value of a tensor whenever the graph is evaluated, using run or eval, is to use the print operation as in this example. Now, whenever we evaluate the whole graph, e.g. using b.eval, we get
Reiterating what others said, it's not possible to check the values without running the graph. A simple snippet for anyone looking for an easy example to print values is as below. The code can be executed without any modification in Python Notebook. Output.
Your honest picture isn't it looking shy?